you would.
Need one.
Okay, thanks.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will interpret accurately the parties using your best skill and judgment and in accordance with the Code of Professional Conduct for Judicial Branch Interpreters?
Y para los intérpretes judiciales, el Poder Judicial, I do, Your Honor.
I do. Okay, thanks so much.
Good morning and welcome. We open the record today in Powesheik County, case number FECR 010822. State of Iowa is represented in this matter by Powesheik County Attorney Bart Claver. Also with Mr. Claver is Assistant Attorney General Scott Brown. We have personally present today the defendant, Cristhian Bahena Rivera. Mr. Rivera is accompanied with both of his attorneys of record, Jennifer and Chad Frese. Should also be noted for the record that Mr. Rivera has the benefit of two interpreters who have been sworn in by the court for today's hearing. I would also take this time to point out that as we talk today, please be cognizant that we have both interpreters and a court reporter taking everything down. So talk at a rate that they can do their respective jobs and also speak up, please. File reflects that on May 28th of 2021, jury in this case returned a guilty verdict. Subsequent to that, on July 8th of 2021, the defendant, through his attorneys, filed two motions. One was a motion for new trial. The other was a motion in arrest of judgment. State resists both of the motions. Today is the date and time set for hearing on those motions. At this time, what record would the defense like to make?
At this point, we'd call Deputy Joe Meyer, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Meyer, do you want to step up here? Mr. Meyer, I'll swear you in before you're seated. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and be seated if you would, please. Mr. Frese, you may proceed.
Would you state your name, please?
Joseph Meyer, M-E-Y-E-R.
Sir, how long have you been employed with the Powesheik County Sheriff's Office?
I've been with the Powesheik County Sheriff's Office for approximately 8 years.
You weren't involved with the investigation into the death of Mollie Tibbetts much?
No, I was not.
Okay. However, you this morning presented us and the government with some new information concerning some statements concerning Mollie Tibbetts, correct?
I did.
Did you receive a report last night concerning information about Mollie Tibbetts and her abduction?
Wasn't about her abduction, no.
Was she mentioned in a report made last evening?
Yes.
Please tell us the report that was made to the Powesheik County Sheriff's Office that you received last evening. You need you to speak up just a little bit.
Yes. An individual named Scott Carter called in to complain because some people were calling him names that he didn't like.
Okay, let me stop you there. Who is Scott Carter?
Scott Carter is a sex offender that lives at the trailer park here in Montezuma.
Okay. Is that the trailer park on 520 Front Street, Montezuma, Iowa?
520 North Front, yes.
Okay. And what did Mr. Carter, what was his complaint?
Like I said, he was complaining because a woman named Sarah and her sister were calling him a pedophile, and he didn't like that.
So he was being harassed by a woman named Sarah and her sister.
Yes.
Does Sarah have a last name?
He did not know what her last name was.
Do we know who Sarah is?
He referred to her being Xavier's mother, so it would be Sarah Harrelson.
Did you investigate that complaint?
I did not go out and speak with Sarah and her sister. His complaint was several hours old by the time it had been given to me by dispatch.
So did Mr. Carter elaborate on any information he had concerning Sarah?
In regards to this case,
Yes.
he stated that one of Sarah's friends named Sam had told him that Sarah had told her that Sarah had seen Mollie at a trap house in New Sharon.
So he reported that, I know it's a couple ways down the line, but Sarah Harrelson had reported to someone, and it's now gotten to Scott Carter, that Sarah had seen Mollie in New Sharon.
Supposedly, yes.
Do you identify where in New Sharon that Mollie was supposedly seen?
No.
Do you identify the time frame in which Mollie was supposedly seen in New Sharon?
No.
Do you identify the circumstances under which Mollie was supposedly seen in New Sharon?
No.
Do you indicate any other individuals who were in New Sharon along with Mollie?
No.
Do you indicate anyone named George was involved in this?
Yes.
What did he tell you about George?
He stated that George was a member of the Mexican mafia.
And did he mention that George had any connection to that home in New Sharon?
No.
So what relevance does George and the Mexican mafia have in this story?
He stated that Sarah was tight with the Mexican mafia and that this George had been there approximately 2 weeks ago. He also stated that at some point during the investigation into Xavier's disappearance, that George had contacted Sarah and told her to keep her mouth shut.
That's all I have, thank you.
Any cross?
Deputy Meyer, correct?
Yes,
You brought this information to me just right before the hearing started, correct?
that is correct.
And this information came to law enforcement's attention last night, correct?
Yes.
So, to make sure I follow this correctly, it's a bit complicated, wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
It's somebody saying someone heard someone else say something, correct?
Something along those lines, yes.
All right, so we're talking about Scott Carter, correct?
Yes.
He was the one that came forward and complained, is that right?
Yes,
He is a sex offender.
that is correct.
Are you familiar with him otherwise?
Throughout the Xavier Harrelson investigation, he has called in about people harassing him several times.
Okay, so this is not the first time he's called in about someone harassing him, correct?
That is correct.
How many times, if you know, has Scott Carlson called law enforcement to say someone is harassing him?
Scott Carter,
I'm sorry, Scott Carter.
I'm unsure on the number.
Well, more than the time that you're just repeating, correct?
Yes.
Or testifying to here today?
Yes, at least 2 other times that when I was still on the night shift, I know another deputy handled.
All right. So did Scott Carter, did you actually meet with him?
No, I did not.
Did anybody in law enforcement meet with him?
No.
Did you talk to him on the phone?
Yes.
And is that where you received your information?
Yes, it is.
And what date and time did you have this phone call with Scott Carter?
It was July 26th at approximately 4 p.m.
Okay, so yesterday at 4 o'clock, correct?
Yes.
So, again, to make sure I understand what he was saying, Scott Carter had talked to Sam, who heard from Sarah that she had seen Mollie Tibbetts in a trap house in New Sharon, correct?
That is correct.
Do I follow that correctly?
I believe so, yes.
All right, so it's third-hand information, would that be true?
Yes.
All right. And New Sharon is how far from Montezuma, if you know?
I'm not sure on the exact mileage.
Okay, is it within a half-hour drive?
Yes.
Okay, and is New Sharon located in northern Mahaska County?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Frese, anything else of this witness?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Meyer, thank you for being here. You're excused.
Thank you.
Defense may call their next witness.
Your Honor, we call Arnie Mackey.
He was pretty soft-spoken, but we'll make sure. Mr. Mackey, good morning to you. Switch.
Your Honor, just the interpreter is going to respectfully ask the witness to get close to the mic.
Well, yeah, we'll do it. Good morning, sir. To the extent you can, raise your right hand so we can swear you in, okay? You swear or affirm the testimony that you give me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated. Yeah, Mr. Mackey, try to speak into the microphones and just make sure you speak up and project if you would, okay?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Frese.
Would you state your name, spelling both your first and last name, sir?
Yes, Arnie, A-R-N-E, Mackey, M-A-K-I,
Sir, how old are you?
46,
And you are presently a resident in the Iowa Department of Corrections, correct?
yes,
And where are you serving your time?
in Oakdale right now.
What charge are you serving your time on?
Domestic violence,
And what is your projected discharge date?
December 4th,
Of this year?
yes,
And the conviction you find yourself serving time for, out of what county did you get that conviction?
Saguenay,
That's Keokuk County?
correct,
Are you from Iowa originally?
what was that?
Are you from Iowa originally?
No, I'm from Upper Michigan,
When did you move to Iowa?
July 20, excuse me, it was the end of July, or end of June,
Of
the 25th, somewhere around there,
2020?
yes,
So you've been in Iowa about a year.
so far now, yes.
Okay. Did you move here because of family?
No, I moved here because my ex-girlfriend wanted to be close to her mom.
And she was the victim of your offense?
Correct.
Now, you found yourself in the Iowa Department of Corrections, but before then, were you in the Keokuk County Jail?
Yes,
And how long did you serve time in the Keokuk County Jail?
3 months, from July 26th through October 19th of 2020.
And during your time in the Keokuk County Jail, did you come to know an individual named Gavin Jones?
Yes,
And was Mr. Jones also in the Keokuk County Jail during that time?
yes,
Do you recall how long a period of time you served in the Keokuk County Jail with Mr. Jones?
about 21 days.
Did you become friends, so to speak, with Mr. Jones?
Yes,
I'm going to put in front of you on the TV screen there what's been marked previously as Defendant's Exhibit C. Let me know if you see it.
I think the court's gonna need to bring it up on the screen. I know it just worked like 15 minutes ago. I'll just do paper exhibits.
If you want me to do it old school, I can do it old school.
Let's do that.
Okay, permission to approach?
Yes, permission granted.
I'm gonna switch these out.
And then Mr. Frese, yes, proceed.
Mr. Mackey, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification purposes. It's Defendant's Exhibit C. Do you recognize the individual in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And, does that photograph fairly and accurately depict the individual that you know as Gavin Jones?
Correct.
Is that how he appeared when you and he were in the Keokuk County Jail together?
Just longer hair.
I'd offer Exhibit C, Your Honor.
Any objection?
Your Honor, I'd object to the extra information in this exhibit as contains several identification and information that the defendant's not qualified to testify to in addition to the photograph. There's no foundation or authentication laid to introduce this extraneous evidence outside of the photograph. So I'd object on that basis.
Here's what we'll do. I'll admit C into evidence, and I would ask that if the state has any concerns about any information that's contained in there, share that with the defense, make sure it's redacted before it's put into the system.
Very well. Now, Mr. Mackey, when you were in jail with Mr. Jones, did you know why Mr. Jones was in jail?
No, I wasn't.
Did Mr. Jones get released from the Keokuk County Jail prior to you being released?
Yes.
When Mr. Jones was released from the Keokuk County Jail, did you and he have a conversation about what he was doing next?
No.
Was he going to another jail?
No.
Did he need bail money?
Yes, he did.
Why did he need bail money?
Because he was afraid to go back to Marion County. He was afraid of being indicted.
Is that what he told you?
Yes.
Did he tell you why he was afraid of being indicted?
No, he wouldn't tell me.
Was he able to post bail out of Keokuk County to avoid going to Marion County Jail?
Yes, I did with my help.
Okay, you gave him money?
Correct.
How much money did you have available to give him?
I told him, I said if he got 100, I would give him the 70.
So you gave him $70.
Correct.
When you were booked out of the Keokuk County Jail, were you given a book out sheet?
No.
But the records of the Keokuk County Jail would establish that you gave him, in fact, $70.
Correct.
Did you have a conversation with the sheriff when you asked to transfer money to Gavin Jones?
Yes, I did.
Because you had to tell someone to move $70 from your inmate account over to Gavin Jones' inmate account, right?
Yes.
And what did the sheriff say to you?
Can I say his name?
Sure.
Adam Clark took me to the side, brought me to another room. He looked at me and he said, "Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to bail him out?" And I told him, I said that he's a troubled kid and that he needs direction. I felt bad for him. He said he's not going to do nothing for you when he gets out or threaten your family. I just said no.
So you'd gotten to a situation where you kind of felt some empathy for Mr. Jones.
Correct.
Did Mr. Jones, over that period of time you two were in jail, begin to confide in you?
Yeah, he got comfortable with me.
How much older do you think you are than Mr. Jones?
Jones is 21,
And you again are how old?
46.
Okay. Back up just a little bit so you aren't getting that. During the time you were in Keokuk County, did Mr. Jones talk about the death of a woman named Mollie Tibbetts with you?
Yes, he did.
And when he spoke to you, was he speaking to you in this comfortable fashion or was it braggadocious? Describe to me the context.
He didn't have no emotion. He just was talking like we talk right now.
So he wasn't bragging,
No.
wasn't showing off.
No, he was just serious.
How did the conversation begin about Mollie Tibbetts?
When I went back in from talking to Adam Clark, I went back in and he asked me what he said. And I told him, I said that he wanted to know if you were going to do anything for me when you leave or threaten my family.
So this conversation occurred shortly before Mr. Jones bailing out.
Yes, because he had like 13 more days left, somewhere around there.
So the conversation then he just started to tell you about his involvement in the death of Mollie Tibbetts.
He told me when I told him that, he's like, yeah, he knows that I'm dangerous. And I just kind of shrugged my shoulders like, yeah, I don't think so. And then he's like, do you know the Tibbet case? I said, no, I've only been here a month. I don't know nobody.
Okay. So Mr. Jones told you that the deputy knew he was dangerous, and then he goes on to tell you or ask you if you know about the Tibbetts case.
Yeah.
And again, his affect is just normal.
Yeah.
Okay. And did it stop there, the conversation?
And then I told him, I said, no. He's like, yeah. He's like, I killed her. I'm like, I said, I don't believe you. And then he said, you know the guy that's being charged for it right now? I said, no, I don't. He's like, reset him up. He's like, it was a sex trafficking case gone wrong, and I stabbed her to death and put her in a tarp, me and my black friend that doesn't speak English that good, and set him up. And I still told him, I said, I don't think you're telling, I don't believe you.
Why did you not believe him?
Because why would someone tell me something so heinous like that? I just thought he was trying to be tough.
Okay. So he just tells you that he killed her. He told you he stabbed her?
Stabbed her to death.
And he told you that the guy that they had charged is the wrong guy.
Correct. He says reset him up. He did not kill him.
How is his demeanor at this point? Is he still pretty?
Still normal. And then I told him, I said, what's this sex trafficker? What's that all about? I said, what's that? I said, I don't know nothing about it. And that's when he started telling me about him being kicked out of his house since he's been 13, living in trap houses and on the street around Des Moines.
Okay.
And he said that him and this guy named Dalton Hansen, which also I need to add that his AKA street name was called Debo, and they would be living in these trap houses at that age. And that's when the office, when I was speaking with Dalton Hansen, he said that he was in the trap house when Adam Clark arrested Gavin Jones. And then I told him, I said, what's with this sex trafficker? And then he started telling me that it's a person that calls this guy and wants some specific girl, color, hair, eyes, weight, and this sex trafficker will hire another guy to go steal a vehicle and stake out the neighborhood and get this girl, whoever, and bring her to the trap house and then do the thing.
Did he give you any type of idea as to how this particular operation he was working with was run? Like any players?
Yes. He told me the name, but I forgot the name. But he said he'd always see this one big guy come in dressed up nice and clean with always a new car. And he would talk to these other guys that were at the trap house. I don't know if they were dealing drugs but he said he'd always see girls coming in and out, going down the basement. He said he's seen a lot of weird things.
Did he give you a location of the trap house or any trap
No,
house?
no, he didn't.
Did he mention anything about law enforcement?
Yes, he did.
What'd he say?
He said the sex trafficker lived in Tama, and he had a wife with two daughters, and that he'd have the Tama police work for this guy to get these girls. And
Did he say Tama Police, or did he mention Tama County Sheriff?
no, just Tama police.
Okay. And the Tama County Police, or Tama Police, would they, according to Gavin, help abduct women?
That's what Gavin told me.
Okay. Did he give you a name of any Tama Police?
No, he didn't. He says, you know, this sex trafficker knows a lot of important people.
Okay. Did he indicate to you that he saw Mollie Tibbetts in a trap house?
No, he didn't.
He didn't tell you that he saw Mollie in the basement of a house?
Yes, he had.
Okay, tell us about that.
He said, well, going further with the sex trafficker, he was asked Gavin, Jones, and Dalton, like he asked this guy and asked him why these two kids were in this trap house. And the guy said that they were homeless. So the sex trafficker took these two under his wing and started paying for him to go steal vehicles for him. And that's when they stole the vehicle, him, Gavin Jones, Dalton Hansen, and his black friend that couldn't speak English stole the vehicle and then had a shootout with the police, and then drove up to this house and ran down the basement. And when Gavin and his friend were down there, he heard a noise from a room. He opened the door, he seen a woman bound to a chair and gagged.
And was he able to identify that woman?
He later on he did. He went upstairs and said that if the police went to the next house over, they would have caught her. And I said, "Who's that?" "Tibbetts." And that's when the sex trafficker said that he had to get rid of her. So he went back down there and stabbed her to death and then put her in a tarp.
Did he talk about how they were able to set up the man who was eventually convicted?
What's that?
Did he say how he was able to set up the man who was eventually convicted?
Yes, he told me he went back upstairs and the sex trafficker said that the defendant almost tipped him off. So that's why they had to get rid of him and then take the body and plant it to look like he did it.
Did he say why they picked this particular person?
No, because they almost tipped, because the defendant almost tipped the sex trafficker off. That's what Gavin told me.
Now, you didn't tell this story until almost the very end of Mr. Bahena's trial, right?
What's that?
You didn't tell any of this stuff until the very end of Mr. Bahena's trial.
Me?
Yes.
I haven't. No, I haven't said nothing for a whole year because I didn't really believe him. And when I did believe him, I seen two clips on Fox News.
When you saw the clips on Fox News, what were the clips that caught your attention?
One of them, the first one was with the defendant. They were saying that he had a family and excuse me, and had no criminal record. And the second clip said that he didn't kill her and that he was set up by two men. And right there, I told myself, my conscience told me, I said I should say something, even if it's not true.
Okay. So based upon those clips, what did you do?
I went and talked to my boss at work and
A chaplain? You took a chaplain?
yes.
Now, are you getting any benefit out of telling this story?
No, I'm not.
You're not getting your sentence reduced?
No, I'm not.
So no matter what you say here today, you're still going to be out of prison in December.
Correct.
Nobody's offering you any money.
No.
No one's offering you any promises of a shorter parole, are they?
No.
What's the culture like in prison for people who come forward and testify in open court?
I have no idea.
Is it good?
Probably not, but I'd rather do the right thing.
So you're getting absolutely zero benefit out of telling this version of what Gavin Jones told you?
Zero.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Any cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Mackey, you said the info that you got on this case was from the news, is that correct?
Correct.
And there were two particular clips that you saw that made you think about what you'd been told, or that the defendant had a family,
Yes.
and that the defendant said he didn't kill Mollie Tibbetts. Is that right?
No, I seen it. He said where he had a family. They were talking about that he had a family, a wife and kids, and that he didn't have a criminal record.
Was there a second clip?
Yes.
And in that clip, the defendant said that he didn't kill Mollie Tibbetts, is that right?
Correct.
Did you watch any of the trial testimony?
No, I didn't.
Do you know any of the facts that were presented at the trial?
None.
Did you say that Gavin Jones told you that he'd been kicked out of the house when he was 13 years old? Is that
Yes.
right? And Gavin Jones told you that he'd been staying at trap houses in Des Moines and other places since that time, is that right?
Yes.
Do you know how old Gavin Jones was in 2017?
No, I don't.
He's about 21 years old now, correct?
Yes.
So 4 years ago, he would have been 17, correct?
Correct.
Did Gavin Jones tell you anything about where he was in late 2017 and early 2018?
No, he hasn't.
You weren't aware that he was in the state's custody from September 2017 to December 2017?
No.
Were you aware that he was in a rehab facility from December 2017 to July 2018?
No.
He didn't tell you that?
No, he hasn't.
Did Gavin Jones tell you that after he left the rehab facility, he went to an assisted living under court supervision?
He didn't tell me none of that.
Was Gavin Jones supposed to pay you back the money that you gave him for his bond?
No.
I'd like to go over the story that Gavin Jones told you. He said he and Dalton Hanson were staying at trap houses, is that correct?
Yes.
And these were actually drug houses.
Yes.
And Gavin told you that while he was at one of these drug houses, he made an arrangement with the owner to steal cars, correct?
Not the owner. It was a person that always was there to do whatever they do.
And the agreement was made by Gavin Jones and Dalton Hanson with this visitor at the drug house, is that right?
Yeah, the sex trafficker guy told this one guy and asked him why they were there.
And Gavin told you that he and Dalton Hanson agreed to steal cars for this individual?
Yes.
And they in fact did steal cars for this individual?
Yes, a lot of them.
At least that's what Gavin told you?
That's what yes.
And when would this have occurred?
He didn't tell me. He didn't give me no dates or nothing. That's what he said.
And Gavin Jones told you that while he was stealing cars for this individual, he got in a shootout with police, correct?
Correct.
Did he say when that happened?
He didn't say that.
Did he say there were any charges filed as a result of that?
The only one that said anything about it was Dalton Hanson after Gavin Jones left. He said that he was afraid of being indicted. And I told him, I said, for what for? He said, for a shootout with the police.
So this drug house, was this in New Sharon?
I have no idea.
Mr. Mackey, you made a comment that the defendant became involved because he tipped off the sex trafficker. What did you mean by that?
That's what Gavin said. I don't know anything why he said that, but that's what he said.
You were interviewed a couple different times about the statements that Gavin Jones made to you, correct?
Correct.
You were interviewed by law enforcement?
Just state detective.
And you also spoke with an investigator that defense counsel sent to talk with you?
In Mount Pleasant, yes.
I'm sorry, interpret is a repetition of the answer.
In Mount Pleasant.
Thank you. That's
And during those interviews, you stated that Gavin Jones told you that Mollie Tibbetts was wrapped in plastic. Is that correct?
Not plastic.
Today you said it was a tarp.
It's a tarp.
In one of those interviews you said plastic, correct?
Might have.
If the written report says plastic, would that be a better record of what you said than your memory?
Could be.
And you stated in one of those interviews that Gavin Jones told you that he and this other individual cut up Mollie's body, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware that the facts of the case and the evidence did not show that particular fact?
I didn't know, but that's what he did tell me. But I didn't believe him.
You stated to investigators that this man at Atema was wealthy. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall telling one of the interviewers that the reason Gavin told you that Mollie had to be killed was because the search was getting too close?
Say that again.
Do you recall telling one of the interviewers that Gavin had told you the reason that Mollie was killed is because the search for her was getting too close to the location where she was being held?
No.
You don't recall that?
No.
Do you deny telling interviewers that?
I didn't say that.
So if that statements reflected in the record of the interviews with you, that would be incorrect?
That'd be incorrect.
Mr. Mackey, just to be clear on time frame, so you were in the Keokuk County Jail with Gavin Jones in July and August of 2020, correct?
Yes,
And you went to prison in November of 2020, correct?
left October 19th.
You went to prison on October 19th, 2020?
Yes,
And you didn't tell anyone about the statements that Gavin Jones supposedly made to you until May 26th of this year, correct?
correct.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Frese, anything else of this witness?
No, sir.
And I just want to confirm with both counsel, he can be excused, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey, thank you for being here. You're excused.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing. My thoughts and prayers
Judge-
goes out to the Tibbetts family.
Mr. Frese, the defense may call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before calling our next witness, I'd offer several different affidavits that we have submitted to the court. These have all been submitted via electronic filing. First, I would submit the affidavit of Lindsay Voss, and this was submitted under seal.
Okay. And I have that, and state have any record they wish to make regarding the Voss affidavit?
Judge, I think this will be true for several of these. We haven't had a chance to review them. They just came in this morning whenever I didn't have an email with them. I didn't have EDMS with them. I just need a chance to look at them. I'm not saying that we'll have an objection to it. I think they're allowed to offer evidence by affidavit under the rule.
I think what we'll do, Ms. Frese, is given Mr. Brown's concern, is we'll get to this, but let's not get to it right now. How's that?
All right, thank you.
And just, Mr. Brown, do you now have those affidavits?
I need to check. I just
They were
talked.
submitted yesterday morning, the
Yeah.
Lindsay Voss affidavit.
How many other affidavits are there?
Well, I'll make the offer right now, and then I'd offer the affidavit of Lindsay Voss, the affidavit of Corey Beal, the affidavit of Scott Gracious, and the affidavit of Shay Moore at this time.
So those are offered. I'll give the state an opportunity to review those four, and we'll make record later on that.
We could do that quickly at a break, Judge. It shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Your Honor, I would also offer, we submitted several different documents involving leads that investigators had regarding sex trafficking back in July of 2018, and I'd offer that as part of the record at this time.
Mr. Brown, have you seen those?
What's the number on that one?
It was filed yesterday morning.
If I could just have a moment, Judge, I don't have my EDMS up yet. Let me check.
Okay.
Is there a number on that one, Jenny?
A number, it's not an exhibit, it was just submitted. It looks like, I don't have a file stamp, but it was file stamped yesterday morning.
Where is it at? What time?
Looks like it was submitted 7/26 at 10:58 a.m.
This is what the problem is, judges. I get a request denied from EDMS that I don't have rights to view the document. So that's what I'm getting. That's probably what the problem was. I'm not saying that they didn't
Scott,
file it
I've got a
yesterday.
paper copy. You want to look at it?
If that's okay.
Yeah, and I think, again, just to keep things moving along here, go ahead and give that to Mr. Brown, and Mr. Brown, review that when you can, and we'll make record on it.
Thank you.
Ms. Frese, any other offers?
Your Honor, before we get to our next witness, the court brought to our attention that the court potentially had contact with Gavin Jones, and we intend to proceed with the court. We're not asking the court to recuse itself, but I do think that it's important enough that it may be made part of the record, so that Mr. Bahena, it's clear that he has had an opportunity to hear the information, and that Mr. Bahena is informed of the information. So I would ask the court to indicate the contact that the court has had with Mr. Jones.
Well, I'll be more than happy to, Ms. Frese. As I shared with counsel last time we were here, I'm from a small hamlet, that hamlet being Sigourney. Pretty much, we can say virtually everyone knows everyone or comes in contact with everyone at some time in a small town like that. And I simply pointed out to the counsel at that time, given that Mr. Jones's name was brought into the case, and I'll phrase it this way: my son is going into 8th grade. When he was going into 2nd grade, so again, my Sigourney math tells me that would be 6 years ago, Gavin Jones's father, Tony Jones, was my son's baseball coach. Because of that, Gavin Jones was present at a few of the practices. He was also present at a few of the games. To the best of my knowledge, I never spoke to Gavin Jones. And I have, to the best of my knowledge, I have not seen Gavin Jones in the last 6 years. After disclosing that, Mr. Frese indicated there were no problems or concerns. And I guess the more I think about it, again, just to err on the side of caution, I'm comfortable and confident that I disclosed it, but I in no way, shape, or form see there would be any conflict whatsoever regarding myself and Mr. Jones's alleged involvement with the case. Does that answer your question, Ms. Frese?
It does.
All right, let's proceed then.
I'd call Special Agent Trent Valletta.
Mr. Valletta, you want to step up here? Valletta, I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and be seated, please. Hold on one second.
And again, the interpreter is going to respectfully ask the witness to speak to the mic.
If you do that, that'd be great, Mr. Valletta. Okay, and with that then, defense may proceed.
Please state your full name.
Trent Vileta, it's V as in Victor, I-L-E-T-A.
Where do you work?
I work for the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation in Cedar Rapids.
What is your position there?
I work for the Major Crimes Unit. I'm a special agent. I'm an investigator for the Major Crimes Unit.
Were you the special agent that was in charge of the Mollie Tibbetts investigation?
Yes, I was.
And so you oversaw the investigation involving the disappearance and the death of Mollie Tibbetts. Is that right?
That is correct.
It's my understanding that for approximately a month that there was an active investigation involving the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts until her body was found. Is that right?
That's correct.
So for approximately a month, you were working to locate Mollie Tibbetts dead or alive. Is that right?
Yes.
Were there systems in place to process any leads involving the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts?
Yes.
Explain what systems there were.
I think for the most part, we were receiving about 100 tips a day. We had an FBI agent assigned to basically a board on the wall. He would assign leads. We also had agents that weren't there that would sift through, like psychic tips, a lot of the more bizarre stuff. Our lead management we tried to make it as efficient as possible, where we would follow up on credible leads.
So what you would do is you would take any lead that came in, is that right?
Yes.
And then with the leads, you would assign leads that you deemed were credible, is that right?
Well, we looked into everything, but like I said, psychic stuff, there's why. But yes, we looked into just about everything.
You also interviewed hundreds of people involving the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts, is that right?
That's correct.
And those people, you'd ask them any information that they had involving Mollie Tibbetts, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, sir, is it true that during the course of your investigation, there were multiple tips that came up that Mollie Tibbetts could be a victim of sex trafficking?
I don't remember any tips that she was a victim of sex trafficking, but I didn't see all of them either.
So you don't recall any sort of tips that Mollie Tibbetts could have been the victim of sex trafficking?
It's possible. We had tips that she was eating ice cream in Sioux Falls and eating tacos in Denver, Colorado. So yeah, it would not surprise me if there were tips that she was a victim of sex trafficking.
All right, sir, we're working kind of old school because we can't get the computers hooked up. So I'd ask Mr. Brown to bring the document that is labeled Submission of Documents Involving Sex Trafficking to you. Yes, thank you. Your Honor, at this time, I'd offer submission of documents involving sex trafficking.
Is it marked as an exhibit?
It is not.
So you're just offering it?
Yes, I'd ask the court to take judicial notice of it.
Okay. Any,
Judge, there's no way the court can take judicial notice of this document. First of all, it needs to be marked so the record's clear. Secondly, it's full of what appears to be law enforcement intelligence information, not only, I think, from state officials, maybe local officers, as well as the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is voluminous. I don't know how many pages it is. It is, we would object based upon that it's, I mean, I don't know what the relevance of it is. I can't even get into it on EDMS. I just got handed this document a couple of minutes ago.
well, the
anyway.
short answer, Ms. Frese, is that I'm going to sustain the objection in that it's inappropriate for the court to take judicial notice of it. I'll just leave it at the objection sustained. Judicial notice is an improper ask at this point in time regarding this document.
Your Honor, at this time, I would make a professional statement, and this is directly relevant to the Brady violation that we are claiming. What we are claiming is that the state failed to produce the investigation involving the James Lowe search warrant and the trap house investigation. Specifically, that'd be Defendant's Exhibit A. So we're submitting to the court that it was a Brady violation for the state to not produce that evidence to the defense. What I'd make is a professional statement, Your Honor, that we have reviewed our discovery. We have reviewed the discovery for anything that involves sex trafficking, and this is what has been provided. In respect to Mr. Brown, I submitted this under seal. I have no control over whether or not the clerk of court gives him access to documents or not, but I recognize that this had confidential information, so it has been submitted under seal. But I do think that the appropriate way for the court to take judicial notice of this is to do that. Otherwise, I would offer this and I'll mark it as Defendant's Exhibit H.
Well, what I would say at this point in time, I don't have enough information to do anything beyond what I've done. If you want to ask further questions of the witness as it relates to this document, that's fine, and then you can renew your position at a later date based on what evidence you establish.
What I'm saying, though, is that I'm making a professional statement that this information was received from the state via discovery. And I'm asking the court, again, I'm renewing my request to offer this entire document.
Well, is there any objection or does the state disagree that this was provided from the state to the defense?
So I'm not sure because I haven't had a chance to look all the way through it. But in order to move past this, what I would request that the court do, which I think you're probably going to do, is accept this exhibit and put it under seal so only parties in the court can review it. And we are confident that the court will give it the weight that it deserves.
And that does seem like a fair resolution. So the court will take it under consideration. It'll be taken consideration under seal. In other words, it won't be shared with anyone else. And the court will make it then part of the record for this hearing. And again, give it the weight it deserves. So with that, go ahead and proceed.
Sir, I'd ask you to turn to the second page that involves an interview of Brian Keegan.
Okay.
And sir, you are the case agent in this, the Mollie Tibbetts case, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so you would review any leads or delegate those leads to another agent, isn't that right?
That's true.
One of the leads that you received was by a Brian Keegan, isn't that correct?
Yep, that's correct, sorry.
And Mr. Keegan indicated that he does not know, but he's seen stuff on television about sex trafficking and that he thought that may be what happened to Mollie Tibbetts. Is that correct?
Yes, he did say he saw it on television that there's sex trafficking in the world. Yes.
Another person that you interviewed was a Hope Beck. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's the next report that is attached. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Beck also stated that she wondered if Mollie Tibbetts was a victim of sex trafficking. Is that correct?
Yes, she stated she wonders if she was a victim of sex trafficking.
Now, Hope Beck was one of Mollie Tibbetts' best friends. Is that right?
Yes, she was.
They went to school together. Is that correct?
Yes.
They spent a lot of time together.
I would imagine if they're best friends, they did, yes.
And in fact, I think she was one of the last people that Snapchatted Mollie Tibbetts. Is that correct?
Yes.
So she was somebody that was close to Mollie Tibbetts. Is that right?
Yes.
And she also indicated she thought there may be a connection to sex trafficking. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's how we perceive what the statement is. It looks to me like she is hoping that she wasn't a victim of sex trafficking, but she doesn't give information that she believes Mollie is a victim of sex trafficking.
Well, what law enforcement does is you're trained to document interviews, is that right?
That is correct.
Do you document interviews verbatim?
For the most part, they're summaries unless they're an official transcript.
And so if it's a summary, how is it determined what information gets in a report?
It's solely on the investigator taking notes and the investigator typing. I have no idea the mindset of someone putting information in a report.
Well, in this case, Special Agent Ryan Herman provided the information about Hope Beck, is that right?
Yes.
And fair to say that it was important enough for Ryan Herman to note in his report, isn't that correct?
Okay, so during the initial part of the investigation, we looked at all different kinds of things. We looked if Mollie ran away with someone else. We looked if Mollie had drug habits that would cause her to go missing. We looked at all these different kinds of things. An appropriate question would be to ask someone, what do you think could have happened? It doesn't mean that the person had information that something happened. What their answer was, and as I'm flipping through all of this, is speculation by people. None of it's credible information. It's merely speculation. And I see you also have psychic tips highlighted. So I would say that, yes, we got all kinds of speculation, hopes that she wasn't hurt, hopes that she wasn't kidnapped, hopes that she wasn't sex trafficked, hopes that she didn't run away. No one knew what happened to her.
So Special Agent Valletta, it was Ryan Herman that interviewed Hope Beck, is that right?
Yes, he did.
And Ryan Herman thought it was important enough to note that Beck stated that she wondered if Tibbetts was a victim of sex trafficking, is that right?
Yes, and I think I already answered that.
All right. Now, sir, the next person, the next report is a Stephen Gibbons. You see that report?
Yes.
And that was another report that was produced by Special Agent Ray Fiedler. Is that right?
Yes. No. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong page. Yes, that's true.
And Gibbons also stated that there are people being kidnapped for human trafficking. He said that is a definitive statement that that is what is happening in his community. Is that right?
That's not true at all.
Well, what he said, go ahead and read the statement then, sir.
Gibbons stated people are being kidnapped for human trafficking and that someone may have taken her for that.
So what he made is he made a statement that people are being kidnapped for human trafficking in the community. Isn't that right?
Again, I don't see where he says in this community. Again, it's kind of akin to the watching things on television statement. I think there's a perception in the world that, and we all know this, there is sex trafficking in the world. No one's saying that it's being done in Poweshiek County.
Well, sir, New Sharon is near Poweshiek County. Isn't that right?
Yes, it is.
And you're aware that there was a search warrant that was done involving James Lowe's residence. Isn't that right?
I was made aware of it when you guys filed your motion 2 weeks ago, something like that.
And that was a sex trafficking investigation. Isn't that right?
Yes, and I believe it was a baseless investigation too.
All right. Well, you're aware that there was, and sir, I guess you're aware that a victim came forward to investigators, correct?
On the New Sharon?
Yes.
So, yes, that was a couple weeks ago when you filed your motion about it.
All right. Have you read over this search warrant? Because I'm happy to provide you with a copy.
No, I haven't, but again, I had no involvement in that, and my understanding is that it was investigated and found to be a baseless complaint.
Well, sir, you're saying that it's a baseless investigation. Have you read the search warrant?
No, I have not read the search warrant.
Are you aware that 2 people came forward and said that they were sex trafficked by James Lowe?
Judge, I'm going to object. There's been no tie at all through any witness, any document, any pleading between this investigation that Ms. Frese is asking Agent Valletta about and the disappearance and death of Mollie Tibbetts. Zero. It has no relevance here.
At this point in time, I'll sustain that objection because the point's a valid one. There is no connection from what we've talked about here today between Mr. Lowe and what brings us here today.
Well, Your Honor, that's what we're doing today, is we're tying them together.
Go ahead and get there then.
Sir, the next report that I'd ask you to turn to is a report by Avery Karras. Are you there, sir?
Yes.
And Avery Karras was a person that was working for Blattner Energy, I think on the wind turbines. You recall there was a group of people working in the area at that time?
Yes, there was.
And Karras also reported to you that it's an odd coincidence that there was another young girl that went missing near a project that he was working on. Is that right?
I object on the same basis, Judge. It has no relevance. Even though it's part of their exhibit that I'm sure the court's going to look at, it still has no relevance.
It's already in the record, Your Honor.
Objection's overruled. Go ahead and answer.
Looking at the statement, he said another girl went missing in Winchester, Indiana during July of 2017.
And so what he indicated to you is that he thought it was strange that in the same place that Blattner Energy was working in another location, there was a girl that went missing. Is that right?
That's what he said, yes.
Now, sir, the next thing I'd ask you to do is to turn to, it's a neighborhood canvas questionnaire by Donna Smith.
Okay.
And this person also said that their opinion was that this was sex trafficking. Is that right?
That's what they said.
Now, Montezuma, Iowa is a town that is located, Brooklyn, Iowa is a town that's located very close to I-80. Is that right?
That's true.
Approximately how many miles is Brooklyn from I-80?
I think it's a mile off the exit. I'm not sure what. She has 2 miles, but I think it's actually closer than that.
In your training and experience, is there a larger drug presence in towns that are located close to an interstate?
Oh, I have no way. That would be a much better question for a narcotics agent. No way of speculating on that.
Right, so you don't believe that, you don't, in your training experience, believe that towns that are located near an interstate have a higher drug presence?
The best way I could answer that is I think there's a tremendous drug problem in just about every small town in Iowa. I don't know if the location matters that much.
Sir, there was also a search warrant that was done involving this case in Indianapolis, isn't that right?
Involving Mollie Tibbetts' case?
Yes.
In Indianapolis, Indiana?
Yes.
Boy, I don't remember that, but it could be true, yes.
You're not aware that there was a search warrant that was done involving what was believed to be sex trafficking in Indianapolis?
Judge, I'm on the same objection. I know this is part of the documents that are the exhibit, but there's simply no relevance here. What does the sex trafficking investigation in Indiana or any tips in Indiana have to do with this case? Absolutely nothing. So we object to relevance in going over this. It's a waste of time.
Mr. Brown, we agreed that I would give the weight to this that it deserves, and I guess because of that, we'll let the defense play it out as they wish to. So, overruled. Go ahead.
Would you mind rereading the question?
You're not aware that there was a search warrant that was done involving what was believed to be sex trafficking in Indianapolis.
Is it part of the Iowa DCI or FBI that did the search warrant?
Well, it was produced, yes.
By us?
Yes,
That we did it?
yes.
Can I see the search warrant?
I don't have it. Sir, and I'll ask the questions. You're not aware of a search warrant that was done in Indianapolis, Indiana?
No, I'm not. No, I do not remember that at all.
Now, sir, circling back to this James Lowe investigation, you understand that the alleged victim indicated that she was abducted from the Casey's in Brooklyn, Iowa.
I was never part of the James Lowe investigation.
Are you aware now that this alleged victim indicated that she was abducted from a Casey's in Brooklyn, Iowa?
You're making me aware of it now. My knowledge of this investigation was a call to the investigator, Adam DeCamp, who told me that the victim was interviewed, they did a search warrant, and the complaint was baseless. That's all I know about this James Lowe complaint.
So this alleged victim, this woman, indicated that she was sex trafficked, and you're saying that it was still baseless.
I'm saying that other people investigated and found it to be baseless. I had no involvement in that case.
Wouldn't you agree, sir, that if you had that information in that month that Mollie Tibbetts was missing, that would be relevant information?
Well, I suppose it would depend when I got that information. If I got that information after Cristhian Rivera confessed and took us to the body and we were able to corroborate his entire confession, then I probably would have disregarded that.
Well, sir, you agree with me that it would certainly be relevant information for you to follow up on, isn't that right?
Again, I don't know how that would have any relevance towards Cristhian Rivera's confession that was completely corroborated from start to finish on video and after Miranda. But however, if it happened before that, we would have paid attention to it.
So, sir, you agree with me that it would be relevant information in your investigation, isn't that right?
Yeah. Before the Cristhian Rivera confession, it would have been something we would have looked into.
All right. Now, sir, I'd ask you to turn, now we're going into leads, and I'd ask you to turn to lead 3900.
Before we get to that lead, let's take our morning recess. We'll be in recess for the next 15 minutes. Thank you.
Well, that's where they got it.